Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are very pleased to have in the studio with us today Sam Mazzeo. He is the co-founder and nonprofit liaison with Fervor Zeal. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Very, very good. Joined by my guest co-host, Kristen Blake. She is a public relations and community affairs consultant. Kristen, I know you have a question for Sam.
Sam, thanks so much for being here today. And before we dive in and get into the nitty-gritty, I have just a simple question. What's the mission of Fervor Zeal?
The mission of Fervor Zeal is to help everybody look great while funding causes and art.
So where'd you get into art? Are you an artist yourself? You've always been interested in art? And what type of art?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll start with a funny story. My mom saw a psychic at one point in time, and this was when I was my day job is being an attorney. So I run a law firm here in town, and the psychic basically said that I missed my calling and I was supposed to be in a creative field. So I've painted over the years. Right now, I dabble a little bit in something called projection mapping, which is a really fun outlet. But this project kind of came out of a client from the law firm who had this idea with their co-founder at their business that I do their legal for. And they came to me and there was a lot more legal involved than they expected. Right. And so that kind of grew into me joining the team with the two of them. And their whole push for this was that they like to buy band shirts when they go to concerts, and they wished that those made an impact.
And so how do they make an impact? Does it go to a nonprofit, the sales of these shirts?
Yeah, exactly. So what we do is we actually partner with artists, and then we partner with nonprofit organizations, and then we match them up. We try to take a lot of the back and forth and kind of the process out of the hands of the nonprofit because they're already doing so much usually. Mm-hmm. Right. And then once we get them matched up and they create the design, then once the design is approved, we put that on shirts and hats and hoodies and tote bags, and every single product that is sold, 25% goes to the nonprofit and 25% to the artist.
Well, that's wonderful. So when you work with, Teddy Swims, I happened to see him yesterday, at Gallagher Square. So if you work with a Teddy Swims or whomever it is, and now, okay, we're going to do this. Is it all types of collateral, or is it pretty much shirts?
Yeah, so we want to do a visual design, and we want that to be really inspired by the nonprofit mission, and then we put it on all of those different products.
Okay, got it. So you do that, and they say, that sounds fine. Who chooses the nonprofit? Is it the band? Is it you folks, because you've been working with nonprofits, a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think it's mostly us right now, just because we've been working with nonprofits. The other co-founders run a web design and development agency that focuses on nonprofit organizations. And so we hope to grow that. We're pretty much open to any nonprofit organizations that we come across. That's why I introduced myself to your previous guest. And we're also open to any artists that come our way. And we pay the artists up front too. So that's not something where we're asking for their work for free. And then just based on hopefully getting profits, we pay them up front as well.
Well, all right. So, I've got about 55 nonprofits that I am on the board of. I won't let you out of here till you get a commitment on all of those. Well, one, I think that's fantastic. Do you try to make a connection that here's a band or here's a artist, and it's pretty much are these musicians mainly or
visual artists? So usually graphic design. We have some people that have done murals and different types of painting work, and then they have been kind of dabbling in illustration, so illustrators as well.
Okay, right. But are you working with music groups as well?
I wish, but we don't have a model yet for trying to make something that's more not visual. So something that's music or, a different medium, video even. We haven't figured out what those products would look like. Maybe we'll get into NFTs if those are still a thing. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows on that aspect of it? So talk a little bit about B Corp certification. I'm very familiar with it, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. I am a big fan of the B Corp movement because it's, to me, the way that we change how business is done. If we can go from all of the businesses being these shareholder primacy, make a lot of money, profits the whole goal, to the goal of a business being to support its community, its workers, and the planet. if that becomes the norm, then we can push these sort of extractive and exploitive businesses out of the picture. And so we just got certified as a B Corp, and my law firm is also a certified B Corp. And to me, it's just something that is a necessary step. And we also hope that at the stage we're at with this business, that it helps get the word out, because with a retail clothing company, it's a pretty saturated market. And in order for us to raise a lot of money for the orgs that we work with, we need more people to know about the brand.
Right, exactly. What's the name of your law firm?
Better APC.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And what does APC stand for?
A professional corporation. It is a
thing
that the law says is required not to confuse the public, even though it's more confusing to the public.
Okay, I got you. All right, I like that. That's great. Do you work with USD at all? The reason why I say that, Paula Cordero, close friend. Do you know Paula?
I do.
Yeah. Right. So Paula Cordero, close friend of mine. She was the dean of the USD School of Leadership and Ed Sciences, and I was honored to be a charter member of their board. Blah blah blah. She's now with the Joan Kroc Center, and of course, she comes in and talks about B Corp all the time. So you're working with them? Yeah.
So I know Paula, I know Karen over there, and they're really big supporters of Be Local San Diego, which is an organization similar to you. It sounds like I'm on many boards like you are, and I'm on the board of Be Local, and they're big supporters of that group and that community. And that's really an organization that's a locally licensed from B Lab, the US, Canada, and global B Corp certification entity that is really designed to create more community around and create more B Corps in the San Diego region.
Right, exactly. Kristen, are you familiar with B Corps?
I am familiar with B Corps. Actually, one of my favorite chip brands is a B Corp certified company, which is very cool. And I think it's just a fantastic way to do business and think about things, from a holistic standpoint.
Absolutely,
yeah. How many people do you think are understanding B Corps? And they're growing. There's no question about it. Is it growing as fast as you'd like? Probably not. Nothing grows as fast as you like, I guess. Right?
No, I'm perpetually surprised at how many people don't know about the B Corp movement.
Right. How do we get the word out? Besides doing things like this, how much do we get the word out on it?
One of the things we're talking about at Be Local for sure, and I think that there's a lot more people that know about it that don't know they know about it.
Right.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that hasn't bought something from a B Corp.
Right.
It's just making them recognize that emblem, that B Corp badge, what that really represents. And I think that, we've talked about doing billboards here in San Diego, and that's a kind of old world way to advertise, but it might work. It might be helpful.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, there's a lot going on in our country right now, but the B Corp movement is growing fast other places. So, for instance,
interesting.
The chair of our board at Be Local, Abraham Chen, he was just in London, and I think they had something like it was in the double digits of B Corps, and it exploded to like 1,000.
And why do you think there and not necessarily here?
I think that it's really a top-down sort of guided movement when it comes to B Corp, because I think that the more you see regulation steward businesses that direction, the easier it is then for businesses to make the decision to spend the time and the money to do the B Corp certification.
Right. Do we have restrictions here in California that are causing it not to explode as fast as maybe other places, or not necessarily?
I don't think so. I think that there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the legal structure that's required for a benefit corporation and a B Corp certification. So I think that could be a little bit of it. But I would actually say that California probably helps on that same point of from top down, kind of helps encourage it.
All right, we're chatting with Sam Mazzeo. He is the co-founder and nonprofit liaison for Fervor Zeal. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things, Mission Fed, in our region, whether it's food insecurity, financial literacy, the homeless, Alzheimer's. They just do great work. I'm joined by my guest co-host, that's Kristen Blake. She's a public relations and community affairs consultant. Kristen, what other questions do you have for Sam?
So I would love to know, when we talk about Fervor and Zeal, I know you had mentioned that you are focusing and a part of Be Local San Diego. Does Fervor and Zeal work with nonprofits and artists in other parts of the country, or are you just focused on this region right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. We are open to working with nonprofits anywhere. We've got one out of Oregon right now. We've got 1 or 2 out of LA. And then I think we've had a conversation with one in New York. And it really is just as far as our network expands.
Yeah. So now you went to law school to not necessarily get involved in B Corps, or how did this fall in your lap, or you always were interested?
Yeah, I would say that none of this was on my radar.
I was going to say,
yeah. So I went to law school. I wanted to be a sports agent. The
Nice.
5'8", 5'9" frame of mine didn't let me be an athlete, so I wanted to be involved however I could, and kind of just quickly realized that was not the industry for me, and then had a law firm job out of law school that was really kind of the opposite of what I believe in nowadays. And so that really kind of highlighted for me who I didn't want to be and what I didn't want to do.
right.
And then from there, I mean, at that point in time, I thought I had made a very expensive and 3-year-long mistake by going to law school. And I ultimately landed at a nonprofit organization in town called Invisible Children. And I was an unpaid intern there and went from, office with bookshelves and a big desk to wherever they could put me in the nonprofit space. And so that really changed my perspective on what I could do with my law degree. And I think from there, that was kind of the start of the path that led me down this sort of journey of recognizing the privilege that I've gotten in my life and really trying to leverage that for other people.
Yeah, no, I think that's so critical. It's funny, we just had on the show San Diego volunteer lawyer program, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They're great, and of course they work with a lot of nonprofits that obviously can't afford necessarily to have somebody help them, whether it's litigation or it's something as well. And I think it's critical that you do that. Do you do any of that work also for nonprofits? Some pro bono?
Yeah, we do. When we can afford to do pro bono, we certainly do. I think it's been a kind of tough year financially for everyone, but we also do on a consistent basis. So this is always the case. We have a lower hourly rate for our nonprofit clients than our for-profit.
Right, exactly. Sam, we come back from break. Let's chat a little bit more about what obviously our listeners can do to support your efforts, or what you would think if you had this magic wand that we like to talk about here at our Spotlight on the Community show, getting more folks engaged in certainly the mission of Fervor and Zeal, but some maybe misnomers about B Corps, okay, that people don't quite get. And then again, whatever else we can do that's going to increase your brand identity, we'd want to do that when we return with Sam Mazzeo, co-founder, nonprofit liaison with Fervor and Zeal. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County. Thrilled to have in the studio with us today Sam Mazzeo, co-founder and nonprofit liaison for Fervor and Zeal, joined by my guest co-host, Kristen Blake. She is a PR and community affairs consultant. So what would you say, obviously B Corps, they're growing, but they could grow faster. What do you think hinders them to grow as fast as they can? Just a lack of, social media out there on them, marketing, what?
I would say it's probably 3 things. So the first one is that there's typically confusion around what's a benefit corporation and what is a certified B Corp. And a benefit corporation is the legal structure that you get from your state. And it's similar to a normal corporation, the big difference being that with a benefit corporation, you have what's called a double bottom line. And that means that the only goal is not shareholder profit. It's both impact and shareholder profit, which has a really important impact because that means that shareholders cannot file what's called a shareholder derivative suit to sue the people running the business for not maximizing their profit. And that is, again, the legal structure. So the B Corp certification is an additional step that you would take. However, it is LLCs and normal corporations are still eligible for that certification. So I think that's one, just general misunderstanding of the structures. And then two, I think that it's really the time commitment to take the assessment and actually pass the assessment. So right now, there's new standards coming out that'll be different. But right now, you have to get 80 points or more on the assessment to become a certified B Corp. And it's a relatively rigorous process. One of the things I'm doing is I have a B Corp consulting, certification consulting company, and we're taking 3 different BIPOC-owned businesses through the certification right now. And there's all of getting everything ready and answering the questions. Then there's submitting everything. Then there's producing everything else they ask for. And then there's paying the fee. And so it's a bit of a process. And I think that can be really daunting for some businesses, especially product businesses, because you have facilities and waste and different things that come up that can hurt your score. And then I think that the last one would really just be that there's a lot of changes that have happened to that movement since it started. And for good reason. When this movement started 10 plus years ago, the landscape was different for this type of thing and for doing business better. And so they've had to kind of catch up and try to stay ahead of the game. And I think that there's been a couple missteps along the way, and that's standard of any global movement, I think. But I think that those 3 things really hurt the ability for it to grow. And if there was another one, it's just awareness. And I think all of those factor into that.
Yeah. Is there another iteration of B Corp that we haven't even thought of yet? C Corp? I don't know, I'm making up stuff now, whatever. Because obviously B Corp is it's a relatively new concept, I imagine. But is there another iteration, or we need to get B Corp under control first, or really get a footprint on that?
I'm a fan of progress over perfection, so I think that the B Corp movement is tremendously important. But there has been conversations that I've been a part of for A Corp or some other version. And just recently, there was a big shakeup. This probably impacted the whole B Corp movement. Is with Dr. Bronner's, who traditionally highest scoring B Corp ever. They broke the scoring model when they took it originally, and they have been part of the movement for many years. And they've decided not to recertify this year. And part of the reason for that is that they don't think that it's stringent enough. And there was some fallout with Nespresso being certified a couple of years ago, which I won't get into my own personal views on that. But Dr. Bronner's really took issue with it. And so they've started something, I think it's called the Progress Pledge or something like that. And so that is another movement, an alternative that is more significant, and I think a little bit more focused on like agricultural and global sort of shipping and fulfillment systems, because they're a much larger organization.
Yeah, and I know they're a big player in an organization that sort of near and dear to my heart. They just had a name change. The Children's Museum of Discovery used to be called the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, even though they're in Escondido. So they changed their name finally. But Dr. Bronner's heavily involved. Are you familiar with that organization?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, they do some great work. Kristen, what other questions do you have for Sam?
Yeah, so thinking about Be Local San Diego, right? Because we're spotlight in the community here with Drew. What are you seeing around B Corp specific to businesses in the San Diego region?
I think that there's a lot of interest. That is one thing. We do a monthly happy hour in Del Mar at Boochcraft, and it always has good attendance. I would say 20 plus people every month. And it's always people that are either interested in becoming a B Corp with their business, and Boochcraft is, so we're hosted at a B Corp, or it's people that are looking to be hired at a B Corp, which I always want to mention when I talk about B Corps is that becoming a B Corp, in addition to all the other benefits, is that it does attract talent. And so I have seen a lot of interest in the region. I think that the primary hurdle is going to be that it seems so daunting to do it.
Right, exactly. But do you see, and you're working with some companies on the certification, obviously, on this. Are there certain companies that are probably better equipped to get the certification than others, or not necessarily?
Yeah, I think if you look at the B Corp membership, it's primarily service-based businesses because it is easier when you don't have a facility and waste. But the new standards that are coming out this next year are going to be a lot different, and they're going to be even more tailored toward different types of and different size businesses. And so I'm excited and cautiously optimistic about the new standard since they've had the version we have now for many years.
And you think of the rigor, which is important to be a big, you don't want to always give up on rigor, but you also don't want to make it too rigorous, or else there's somebody that's on the cusp of that. We just don't have the, footprint and, the human power to do it. Is there sort of a fine in between on there?
Yeah, so actually, I think the new standards, that was a great segue. It's almost like we set that up.
Yeah.
But the new standards actually have a phased-in approach now. So in the new version, what you'll do is you'll have to comply with 60% of your requirements in your first year, and then another 30% in the next 3. And then by year 5, you have to have done all of it. So there's another 10% there. And so it kind of phases in, I think, to address that a little bit.
Right. And so once you have this here, Paula's going to be so happy that we're talking about B Corp on this. She's probably sitting there right now going somewhere thinking.
She's in Rwanda at a B Corp, actually, as we speak.
So Paula.
Yep.
So Paula. Have you met her?
I have not had the pleasure of meeting her
amazing.
yet, but I want to now.
Oh, no, she's a force.
Yep.
And exactly. I think she's overseas more than she's here.
Yeah.
In San Diego, for that matter. And did a lot for USD Souls when she was there, and now doing it for the Joan Kroc Peace and Justice in this area. I think it's great what you're doing, Sam.
Thank you.
Taking your background in law, of course, certainly helps quite a bit in this area, to say the least on it. And, hopefully we'll, without giving up rigor, make it a little easier for people to do B Corps. And so it makes all the sense. And I think, do you see that there are more younger folks that want to gravitate toward B Corps than older, or not necessarily?
I think that it's a pretty, I don't know if I'd say 50-50, but I think it's probably 60-40 young. I think that, and maybe this is San Diego specific, but this is something that I've seen in San Diego for years, is that there's a lot of people that did well in their career, and then whatever it is about San Diego or Southern California, they're sort of pushed towards trying to make an impact. And I think that there's a lot of people that come to the B Corp movement in that way.
Yeah, no, you're a laser beam on art. Okay. My mom was an artist.
My mom's an artist.
Yeah, I couldn't draw a stick figure. Then someone said, Drew, there's some real good stick figure art. I said, not the Drew Schlosberg type, I'll tell you that right now. But talking about art, how does AI play a part in this? And, everyone is dealing with AI. And the schools are dealing with it. Artists are dealing with it. Probably lawyers. Everyone's dealing with it, right? Talk about that in the context of art.
Yeah, I don't think there's a week that goes by that someone doesn't send us a chat GPT something at my law firm, and we won't go into that. But I mean, it's, the timing of starting Fervor Zeal, I think when we originally sat down to talk about it, it was January 2024, and AI wasn't what it is now. And, I'm sure within 3 years, we'll be saying the same thing about AI. But we didn't, I think, foresee how much more necessary this company would be and what we're doing, because now we see that it's always been hard for artists to get paid for their work. Let's call it what it is. But
right.
Now it's even more difficult when you can go and generate hamsters in space in 5 minutes, right? And so I think that for us, it has just become such a necessary function that we're providing, and especially with similarly how difficult it is for nonprofits to find funding right now. So it's grown into something that we feel is even more necessary than when we started it.
Yeah, no, there's a need. There's no question about it, and so forth. So what can our listeners do to support your efforts?
It's a great question. Appreciate you asking it. The number one thing I think is just trying to share the brand, get it out there. And then if people know artists or nonprofits that might benefit from this, and then the big ask would be, if there are anybody that are influencer types that have a big following that would be willing to wear the shirt or carry a tote bag or do an unboxing, we think that type of more organic sort of get it in front of people through people that they already trust that have a big following, we really think that that's the way that this is going to grow and get out there. So anybody interested in helping us in those ways, we'd be more than happy to talk to them.
Yeah, what's the website? How do they get a hold of you?
Yep, www.fervorandzeal.com. And then it's Fervor and Zeal on Instagram as well. And those are probably the two places we're the most active. And you can message us through the website about any of the above.
Oh, great. Any final comments?
Thanks for having me. And I appreciate you guys doing this work. I think just based on your previous guests and what I'm talking about, this is a necessary podcast.
Yeah, it's been fun to do. 19 years, that was called internet radio when we started this thing. But you're never short of, cool things that are going on that people need to be aware of. My background is in journalism and education. And we'd always get a little frustrated. And when you hear someone say, God, I really wish I would have known about this, and go, okay, so how do we get the word out? And you can't do enough of this. You can do it, as many times as possible. If you think you can do it once a year, you're wrong. You just have to have that message. So we're happy to shine a light on what you're doing, Sam. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Sam Mazzeo, co-founder of Nonprofit Liaison for Fervor and Zeal. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Thanks for listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 19th year, brought to you by the fine folks of Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County. And thank you again, Kristen Blake, being my guest co-host, PR and communications consultant. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.